Hello and welcome back to Chapter 10 of Supernatural Night Terror by John Passarella. In the last chapter, Dean ended up stuck down a sinkhole with a banana yellow Mini Cooper about to crush him and a small child. Will they survive? Chapter 10. Eric Vogel shuddered in his sleep, rolled to the left, and a few moments later rolled to the right, becoming tangled in his sweat-soaked sheets. Mumbling softly, his words unintelligible, the tone of his voice escalated from concern to agitation to fright. His distress culminated with him shouting, "No, no, no!" With the last protest, his eyes opened wide and he swung his tangled legs over the edge of the bed, breathing harshly. Pressing his good hand to his chest, he felt his heart hammering beneath his ribs. He could imagine himself having a fatal heart attack at that moment, widowed, retired, alone. Nobody would miss him for days. While he waited for his heart rate to return to normal, he leaned over the bed, forearms resting on his thighs, head hanging. Because of his huddled posture, he neither saw nor sensed the mass of darkness dispersing above his bed, thinning itself into deep shadow and drifting along the walls and out through a narrow gap in the windowsill. His thoughts turned inward to the nightmare, the same one that had visited him on a regular basis for the past 20 years, only worse. The explosion, the partial cave-in at Croydon Creek, began the same, but this time more than his right arm had been crushed. He'd been standing in a new section, next to a support beam, and the explosion blew it clear. Coal, dust and methane, bad combination. He shook his head. One moment he'd been standing, the next he was buried under an avalanche of rock and dirt, his ribs crushed. In the nightmare he couldn't escape, couldn't breathe, felt his life slipping away down in the darkness. Vogel stood on weak legs and walked to the bathroom, bending over to splash water on his face with his trembling left hand. The fingers of his right hand were mangled. He couldn't do much with the muscles of that arm and, as a result, it had atrophied. After the cold water cleared the fog of sleep, he stood up straight and took several deep breaths. The real explosion and cave-in at Croydon Creek Mine had been bad, but the nightmare scenario had been far worse. Nevertheless, bad had been bad enough. After the accident, he never set foot in that mine or any other mine ever again. That didn't stop the nightmares from haunting him through the years. Outside, the wind howled and his bedroom windows rattled in their frames. A flash of lightning lit the room in stark black and white. The rumble of thunder shook the eaves of his house. This troubled night, with the cave-in images especially vivid in his head, he decided he'd had enough sleep. Staying awake, whether watching a movie or reading a book, was his only guarantee that another nightmare wouldn't finish the course of the first, and this time see him buried alive in a deep dark pit. If nothing else, his heart would thank him. As the yellow blur of the Mini Cooper fell towards him, Dean clutched the 3-year-old boy against his chest and flattened himself against the driver's door of the Chevy conversion van. "Hold on," he said into Hunter's ear. The Mini Cooper slammed into the partially submerged Camry with a booming clash of metal and a popping crunch of breaking safety glass. The yellow car's roof missed Dean and Hunter by less than a yard. Hunter's mum screamed and the boy started to cry again. "Everybody calm down," Dean shouted. "I've got this." He took a deep breath. "Hunter, can you hang on to my neck?" The boy nodded. "Good." Dean shifted Hunter to his back, with his small arms wrapped around Dean's neck. But he didn't trust the boy's ability to hang on as he climbed, so Dean kept his left hand clamped over both of the boy's fists. He scrambled up the steep slope high enough to climb onto the side of the Mini Cooper. The small car's undercarriage had sunk into the side of the sinkhole facing the front of the store, so Dean jumped onto the slope with an awkward 3-point landing. His shoes immediately began to sink into the soft earth, and his free hand couldn't find any reliable purchase. He realised 2 things at that moment. No way was he climbing out of the sinkhole unassisted, and that strong odour assaulting his nostrils was definitely gasoline. Somewhere in the mangled pile-up of cars, a fuel line had been compromised or a gas tank ruptured. He looked to where Sam was inching along the fence to track their movements. "Sam?" Their eyes met, and Sam nodded grimly. He looked over to the store clerk. "Anson, you sell rope in there?" "Wait, rope? No, we don't. Wait, what about clothesline?" "Clothesline is perfect." "We have packages, 100 feet. Good, get one." While Anson ran on into the store, Sam made his careful way along the fence and then hurried along the sidewalk to join Hunter's mother. Anson came out and handed Sam the shrink-wrapped package of white clothesline, which Sam quickly ripped open to play out the coiled line. "Hey," Anson yelled, "bad idea, man." Dean looked to the far side of the parking lot and saw one of the bystanders, a balding man in his 40s, edging around the back of the gold Firebird. "The hell's he doing?" Dean called. "Sir," Sam yelled, "get back." The man tossed a dismissive wave in Sam's direction. "I'm saving my car." Dean shook his head. "You believe that guy?" "Dude, seriously," Sam said. "What, you and the Impala?" "Totally different." "Right, because you have all your hair," Sam said, then shouted at the man. "You can't move your car, it's trapped." The back wheels of the Firebird were 2 feet from the edge of the expanding sinkhole. The front bumper was too close to the chain-link fence. No room to turn or manoeuvre. The car was as good as gone. Ignoring Sam, the man started and gunned his engine. Then the Firebird edged forward, pressing into the metal fence. It seemed he intended to run over the fence and drive off the side of the lot. But the centre of his front bumper pressed against one of the vertical support posts, which was anchored in cement and wouldn't budge. He floored the accelerator, which caused the black wheels to spin and squeal against the compromised blacktop. What he couldn't see was that the wheels were accelerating the erosion process. He threw it in reverse and backed up a bit, expecting to ram the fence. But the back wheels hit the lip of the sinkhole before he expected, and they dropped over the edge with a loud squeal as the undercarriage slammed into the ground. "Sam, the rope!" Dean shouted. With the sound of screeching metal behind him, Dean reached up and caught the end of the clothesline. Sam was about to secure the other end to a bollard, but noticed the one leaning dangerously forward and backed up to loop the line through one of the store's door handles. Meanwhile, Dean had looped the other end around Hunter's body, snugging it up under his arms and making a few quick knots. He checked it was secure, then called, "Ready!" Sam stepped out to the edge of the sidewalk and pulled the line up end over end, lifting Hunter out of the pit. He caught the boy in his arms, and the mother cried out in relief. Rather than fussing with the knots, Sam took a folding knife from his pocket, cut the rope from behind the boy's back, and handed him to his mother. "Oh, thank God," she said, squeezing her son against her chest and kissing him repeatedly on his cheeks. Thank you both." "Anson, take her and the boy out through the back," Sam instructed. Dean looked over his shoulder, wincing at the protesting squeals of metal. The Firebird slipped inexorably backward, tilting up like a breaching whale captured in slow-motion video. Sparks showered across the blacktop, reminding Dean of the gasoline leaking somewhere in the pit beneath him. "Gonna get hot down here, Sam." The loose bollard broke free, arching down towards Dean's head. He jumped to the side, sprawling in the dirt as the cement post crashed through the window of the Mini Cooper. The small car and the Camry beneath it settled deeper into the pit. The Joker in the Firebird opened the door of the car and jumped out. The door slammed shut, clipping him on the shoulder as he fell, and sent him sprawling towards the back of the car. The treacherous ground gave way beneath him. He shouted in alarm as he toppled head-first into the pit in what amounted to a half-somersault. Landing with a thud on the passenger door of a half-submerged black minivan, he stared up into the night sky, moaning. Sam looked from the teetering Firebird to its owner, 20 feet below. Oh, no. "Hey, asshat!" Dean shouted. "Move!" The man rubbed the back of his head. Then it suddenly dawned on him. My car. The Firebird dropped straight down like a hammer on an anvil, and the owner had the misfortune of lying between the two. The crunch of shattered bones was almost completely masked by the collision of steel driving into steel. Almost. Slick gobs of burst flesh and arterial spray of blood spluttered over the black minivan. The Firebird toppled over with another crash, revealing a red pulpy mess barely identifiable as human remains. Lovely. Grimacing, Dean looked away, and not simply because the Firebird had taken its name all too literally. Active tongues of flame roamed along the undercarriage, hungrily seeking a more plentiful fuel source. With renewed urgency, Dean wrapped the clothesline around his waist several times and tied it off. He climbed hand over hand, scrambling up the loose earth to keep from losing ground. Sam pulled on his end, taking some of Dean's weight away. Red and blue lights flashed across the expanse of the sinkhole, accompanied by the brief whoop whoop of a police siren. Dean recognised Chief Quinn's voice over the police cruiser's loudspeaker. "Everyone clear the area! Stand clear, now!" "Agents," he called. "Fire trucks on the way!" "Sinkhole's clear," Dean yelled. "Everyone's out." "Good," Quinn said. "Now you better get the hell out of there." "Working on it," Dean said. He heard a woman call out to Quinn, "That man saved a little boy." Dean was halfway out of the pit when he noticed the crumbling dirt was gradually revealing the underside of the sidewalk. Cracks formed in the cement, and sections started to break away and slide past him on the steep slope. Utility pipes, possibly cable, water and gas lines, ran under the sidewalk. To his right, a second bollard pitched into the hole. In the distance, Dean heard the wail of police sirens. By the time he reached the end of the sidewalk, Sam was standing with his back pressed against the glass store front, hauling on a thin clothesline, but monitoring this disintegrating walkway. Sam caught Dean's arm and pulled him up and out. At that moment, several sections of sidewalk tilted forward, pitching him towards the sinkhole. The door securing the line had been pulled open by Dean's weight. "Go," Dean said. "I got the line." Sam threw himself backward through the open door and into the quick mart. Dean's feet started to slip out from beneath him, but he continued to support his weight with a clothesline until Sam caught his arm and tugged him inside. A glance back showed black smoke curling up from the pit, but the flames were beneath his line of sight. An explosion blasted up from the sinkhole, followed by another and a third, a chain reaction of automobiles exploding. The noise was deafening, and debris sprayed everywhere. Chief Quinn took cover beneath his cruiser. Bystanders were shouting and screaming, racing to the far side of the highway. No doubt they'd witnessed the Firebird owner get himself killed. If nothing else, the man had helped by serving as a cautionary tale for others. "That was close," Dean said. "Too close." Another explosion roared outside, this one rocking the convenience store. Overhead, the fluorescent lights flickered. Snack bags and aluminum cans crashed to the linoleum floor. "Not good," Dean said. The vibration was only the beginning. The store itself was shifting, creaking, groaning. Dean recalled the utility lines running under the sidewalk out front. Natural gas. Maybe a propane tank out back. Crap. "We're not out of the woods yet, Sammy," he observed. They sprinted to the back of the store, kicking the falling shop goods out of the way, past metal racks of chips and bread and boxes of doughnuts and assorted candy, and ducked through a door employees only, into a cluttered stockroom and out through the rear exit. Another explosion sounded, seeming even closer, and with a bigger wallop. The back wall of the store shook, and the ground beneath their feet shuddered. They couldn't underestimate the instability caused by the sinkhole. For all Dean knew, the whole convenience store might drop onto the crushed cars at any moment. "There," Sam said, pointing to an 8-foot ladder propped against the cinder-block wall behind the store. A few moments later, they had climbed over the wall and dropped down to the grass on the other side. They were shielded from the blast zone, but how far the sinkhole would spread was an open question. Anson, the store clerk, stood there awkwardly with his hands stuffed in his pockets, but Hunter and his mum were nowhere to be seen. "Killed his mum?" Dean asked. "Gone," Anson said with a clear tremor in his voice. "She wanted to hang round to thank you again, but after the first explosion—" "Good parenting," Sam said. "No place for a kid." "You okay?" Dean asked Anson. "Yeah, fine," the clerk said, nodding a bit frantically. "Called my manager. Told him I'd wait for him. Don't think he believes me, how bad it is." "Picture's worth 1,000 words, right?" Dean said. "If I were you, Anson, I'd wait a block or two away," Sam said. Then his cell phone rang. He glanced at the display and showed it to Dean. It said, "Clayton Falls Police." Sam answered and listened. He mouthed the name Jeffries to Dean. Yes, we did. Yes, I would classify that as weird. That too. He listened for a few moments. I'll need addresses. After a few moments, he said, we found something weird as well. Sam described the sinkhole, the subsequent explosions, and one death. Your chief's here, got his hands full with crowd control. A short time later, he pulled the phone away from his ear. Well? Dean asked. Walk with me, Sam said with a discreet nod in Anson's direction. Excuse me. They cut through someone's backyard and circled around to the street, heading towards the Impala. Short version? Dean nodded. Giant tarantula, killer trees, and the Phantom Charger returned. Killed Tony LaCosta. And other reports are coming in. Attempted home invasions, masked gunmen. Busy night, Dean said grimly. I'll say, police is spread thin, but some of these apparitions disappear in front of the witness or are gone by the time paroles arrive at the scene. Fits the MO of what the hell this thing is. Lightning flashed across the sky, followed by a prolonged rumble of thunder. A gust of wind whipped around them, shaking nearby treetops. Behind them, another explosion rocked the night. Sam, Dean said, don't think this night's done yet. Ooh. Okay, that was the end of chapter 10. Tune in. Oh, just saw the word velociraptors in chapter 11. Maybe we'll get our dinosaurs on. See you then.